Give us a wave, Tim. So while Tim gets the exciting job, I get this one. I said I'd spare you the much bandsawing, but there you go. There's a bit of it. And there's Tim.
Ready available, subject to status.
Barbershop singers from Gloucestershire, with a joint mortgage and a credit card for over a year. Has an Experian credit score of 862, and to his credit, the
which is why the new BMW 3 Series Touring is perfect if you're all packed up for, or escaping to. It has extensive storage and an automatic tailgate, handy if your hands are full. And it even has an optional intelligent voice assistant to help you every time. The new BMW 3 Series Touring will do a 24-hour test drive. Test drive subject to status availability, participating retailers only.
Christmas wins at Wilco's having the whole family celebrate. The table set with festive display and fancy glasses and plates, toasted with bubbles, dinner is served and hang on, where's the stuffing? Well, you can't win at everything.
Make your Christmas that little bit better with lots of little wins from Wilco. Celebrate with champagne flutes from 50p and 6 gin glasses was £8, now just £6. Find them in-store and at wilco.com. Wilco, lots of little wins, subject to availability and free charge supply.
We're in the deep space and never kind of help. Don't panic. And with the AA, the app lets you track the mechanic right to your side. I'm not going to do it in the AA. No, those are the accept capital.
There are lots of smart reasons to join the AA. You'll get unlimited call-outs, our tap and track app, and we'll get you going again in around 30 minutes of arrival. Switch to a different kind of breakdown service for just £5 a month. Visit the AA.com. New customers only, T's and C's apply.
And live what you love this Christmas with Vodafone. Save £201 with spectacular Huawei P30. Now for only £32 a month on our unlimited data plans. With our best ever mobile network, it's time to switch to Vodafone. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Offer ends 19th of December. RPI increased minimum term agreements and terms apply. Max download speeds applies to unlimited data. Terms and savings at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Is Country Hits Radio.
Boris Johnson and Donald Trump have again said the NHS won't be part of any future trade deals between the UK and the US after Brexit. But as NATO leaders gather in London, these people at a protest outside aren't convinced.
It's not on the table, lock, stock and barrel, but there are many ways in which Donald Trump could get involved in our NHS.
It's been a rather fragile state these days. I wouldn't trust Donald Trump and Boris Johnson with its safety in the future. Earlier, the US president insisted he'd be staying out of the election campaign, but that's...
No bass, no guitar, no tambourine. Now country hits radio.
I can't wait to show you where I walk you around the foothills of my town. Probably feel like you've been there before. After hearing all that you're breaking more hearts than mine. Sister's gonna ask a million questions. Say anything she can to tell you.
I'll show you a little look at the saw table I made for this. If I can get my camera off. There we go. Ooh, out of focus. Come on, focus you. There we go. Okay, so this is a Clark bandsaw, nothing special. But the saw table that you get with it is well, it's so I fabricated this thing. It could be a little thicker on the plate, but that's the plate that I had. So basically it clamps into the vise, fits just above the bottom set of blade guides, and gives me a much more stable and solid base for cuts. And what I've been using that for is to square the ends of the cuts that I've been doing with a 9-inch angle grinder. So that cut there, because it's a circular blade, isn't flat, or vertical I should say, so I've been using the bandsaw to do that. And there are all the bottom limbs and a couple on top cut. So they're now going to get bent outwards, and a bit of forging work, etc. 2 holes still to punch and drive through, but that'll just give you a bit of an idea. Okay, so I'm just sizing up proportions on this sign design so that I can figure out where I'm going to need to punch the holes through for the actual wooden signs themselves, which that bit of 2x4 is basically representing. It's 21 inches long. The actual signs I think can be up to 6 inches wide, and they need to be spaced for 4 of them. Take no notice of that, that's just there simply as a straight edge for reference, and the leaves at the end are set roughly speaking where they'll be after everything's been cut, bent, forged, tinkered with, etc. So if I step down, always good to have a third hand. So if we look, 10 inches in brings us to where the edge of the board would be. We go in another 4 inches on this one. That is where we will punch and drift a hole for the chain. As you probably can see, I'm mixing measurements here. When it comes to sort of bigger stuff or general ballpark, I usually use inches. When I need to get really precise, then I go metric and I'll use millimeters. So you can see that 6 inches to the edge of the sign, so we've got a nice spacing in this gap. This will be much further that way, but you'll still see it in line, so it's useful to use a straight edge for that. 21 inch is the overall size of the wooden sign, so basically from there to there. Again, drill and punched hole. This is slightly different. If you look at the design, what we're dealing with is this area here. This will be split, bent out. This will be bent up, probably forged a little at the end, and that's where this leaf is going to attach. Unlike on the design, I think for the weight of the plate, that's a little too flimsy, so I'm going to do something with this. The design is pretty much a mud map type design. If I was doing it to the nth degree, then obviously I'd do a proper full rendering of it, but this will be good enough for our purposes. So yeah, this will get bent down, this will get bent up. So 3 inches to the edge of where the sign will hang, and then 7 inches in total from the cut to where the other punched hole will be. And if I take a step back again, hopefully without falling over and killing myself, as you can see, I think at those spacings that is going to have a nice balanced look to it. So there we go, onwards and upwards. The other thing which I forgot to mention is all this layout will now act as a master for everything else. So I'm not going to touch this, but this is going to remain, so that when I've done 4 for the first sign, I've got this, so that when I start on the other 2 signs, on my measurements, all done, no messing about, I can just crack straight in to get it put together. And likewise, I'll make a master on this top limb as well, and the same. I'll do 5, so I've got 1 spare that I can use as a master for then doing the rest of them. Okay guys, might be getting a little bit in front of ourselves here, but as a bit of extra, we're going to be taking a look at this. This is a fork in the trunk of the tree, and I've got some 5 or 4, no, I think it's 5mm wall thickness pipe for this, which I can show you an example of right here. So what we're going to do is the top 6 inches or so, we're going to follow this in to make 2 circular sections, and then we're going to cut them, weld them and shape them to that. Now, here's me thinking about how we can go about this. if we get the first 6 inches of this or so hot, we can literally just get it on an anvil, flatter, and start to pinch this tube down. Now, as we pinch this tube down, obviously, it's going to turn into an oval. That oval happens to coincide quite nicely with the outside diameter of a piece of scaffold tube. So, as I say, a little bit in front of myself, but I've made up a jig. And here she is. If you can see that. As an old mate of mine would say, rough as a barrel of but here's the thinking. I can show you that. This looks like one hell of a mean shotgun. Imagine that being stuck in your face if you open the door. Anyways, we get this squished down enough that it'll fit over our jig. We can then fuller in, and as you do, here's one I prepared earlier, and essentially, let me show you that. It'll fuller in like so. Now, there is another jig that I'll need to make. It's an extremely complicated one, and I'm pretty sure the guys among you that have been around a while have probably guessed what it is. I'll give you a clue. Yep, that's the second jig. So once this is fullered into this depth, we'll cut it, cut the other side, use a scaff pipe, and then knock this in to form as 2 branches, and then we'll weld it up and dress it. Hopefully what I'll be able to do as well is use the single scaff pole jig to tweak the thing as we go and get this bend here, this, and then of course we'll have to cap them. I don't have anything to cap the top yet. I'll probably have to make something. If I'm lucky, I'll be able to use a hole saw, drill through a bar or plate, weld up the small drill hole, and then weld around the outer diameter. Anyway, what I do have, however, are these, which happen to quite nicely fit in there with enough of a gap that I can get a really good penetrating weld, and that will be for the bit of this that sticks in the ground. But as I said, getting a little bit in front of ourselves. Still, what do you reckon? It's like, give us your money. Yeah, actually, should explain this part. Apart from the fact that this is, as I said, literally made from a cut up camp bed that I was sleeping on here. The idea of this is, obviously, as we're fullering this hot material down, it's cooling. As it's cooling, it's shrinking. So if it gets stuck without some sort of 90 degree from this, we've got nothing to beat on to try and get it out. So again, jigs don't have to look pretty to do a job, and if this works as I hope, then it saves a lot of very delicate finagling otherwise. I might, as I said, or did I say? Anyways, I might have to put something in here to act as a bracer if these start to disform under the heat, but the general idea will be it goes in, bing, 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 comes out, gets dumped in the water, and then it's just kept cool, so hopefully it'll keep its structure, but we'll see. It's only got to do 3 of them. If it lasts the 3, we're all in front. So there you go. I hope it all turns out as well as I think it will. Famous last words. Till next time, enjoy.